Hello, this is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. Today I'm going to continue review of CDFM Module 4, Competency 2, Systems Engineering. I'm going to pick up on page 4 to 16. At the bottom of page 16, where we talk about systems of systems engineering. So if you notice, I'm only covering a few pages for each of these videos because there's a lot of information and I want to be able to get through all the information to ensure that we understand what is going on. All right, so let's see what it says about systems of systems engineering at the bottom of page 4.2.16. All right, so it says in the middle of that first paragraph, systems of systems engineering deals with planning, analyzing, organizing, and integrating the capabilities of a mix of existing and new system. All right, so systems of systems is we're taking a mix of different but similar systems or new systems, and then we're putting them together. We're integrating them to make to fill a capability. So systems of the systems engineering. The second paragraph says a family of systems does not create capability beyond the fact that they're just part of the same family. So some of the systems are not interoperative. They cannot work together to make a better product. So that's what this is saying here. A family of systems does not create capability beyond the additive sum of the individual capability. Each one have a capability that they're able to do, and even though they're similar, they're in the same family, you can't put them together. That's what that means. The evolutionary acquisition, remember we say DoD strives to use evolutionary acquisition, meaning we're not starting from scratch every time we need a new equipment or a new automation system. We use the evolutionary process. So it says programs with an evolutionary acquisition strategy undergoes additional reviews. Example, a milestone B decision for each increment. The systems engineering activities and reviews are repeated as appropriate to ensure the same level of program insight is achieved within evolutionary acquisition programs. So everything that we do within the acquisition process is considered evolutionary. We're evolving throughout that process. So in summary, remember we talked about, so I see a list under technical management things that we do versus technical processes. So I need to be able to separate them. So technical management processes include decision analysis, technical planning, technical assessment, requirements management, risk management, configuration management, interface management. Okay, I see a lot of management behind the names. So if they have the word management behind them, they're technical management processes. What else? Technical assessment. So they're all two-letter words. Technical processes, we look at the stakeholders requirement definition. What did they say they need to do? We analyze our requirements analysis, architectural designs, so we look at several other alternatives, implementation, so we implement the lowest level elements, then we integrate that lowest level into a higher level, we verify that we build the right thing, we validate that it's doing what we want it to do, then we transition into building the product that we need. And then we went over systems of systems engineering. All right, we're still continuing with systems engineering, but on page 4.2.19, now we begin with the material solution analysis. So if you remember when, I think it's module 3, when we went through the phases of, module 2 in cost and economic analysis, I think we touched on this also. Material solution analysis was like the first step. Once the JSIDs identify what we need to fill that capability gap, then we go into material solution analysis. We're analyzing to see what are the various courses of action, the various alternatives that we can develop to get this job done. So the diagram's on page 19, and then the next series of pages breaks down each part of that diagram. So let's see, the first part says, at the material development decision review, the joint staff shall present the JROC recommendations, and DoD components shall present the initial capabilities document. So the ICD is the document that's stating what we need to build, what we need to buy, to evolve, to acquire, to meet that capability gap. So it's published in the ICD. And then it goes through the director of CAPE, program evaluation, shall propose study guidance for the, okay, that's important there. So the DCAPE, the same guy that's in charge of the programming phase of PEEB, the same guy that's in charge of updating the Future Year Defense Program, is also responsible for providing guidance in how we need to do the analysis of the alternatives in the material development decision. So DCAPE, responsible for AOA. So I have that. Okay. So analysis of the alternative is just like when you do the military decision-making process, you come up with alternatives, then you have to analyze those alternatives with whatever the several criteria that you've established, you have to analyze them. So likewise is what I will compare that to. So on page 21, it says the Milestone Decision Authority shall approve the analysis of the alternative study guidance. Before every step, there's always a decision point to determine if they want to move to the next step. So determine the acquisition phase or entry. Let's see. The MDA's decision to begin material solution, just because we're talking about establishing and developing courses of action in the material solution analysis, does not mean that a new acquisition program has been initiated. If you remember in previous videos, I said that the formal acquisition process occurs at Milestone B. So you would have already done the material solution analysis, you would have already done the Milestone A, and you would have already done the technology development phase. So the Milestone B, once they get to Milestone B, if they determine we need to move forward, that is the point where a new acquisition program has been initiated. The ICD, Initial Capabilities Document, and the analysis of the alternative study guidance shall guide the AOA and material solution analysis phase. All right, let's see. I got some underlining stuff here. The analysis of the alternative, AOA, shall focus on identification and analysis of alternatives, measures of effectiveness, cost, schedule, concepts, and operation. So remember, this is early on in the stage. You identify you have a gap. In the ICD, the JROC details what it's going to take to fill that gap on the ICD. Then we start the material solution analysis. And in that analysis, now we're coming up with the specifics. What are the measures? How do we know it's effective? What is the cost of it? How long does it take to build it? What are the overall risks? So those are all the questions. The last paragraph on page 21 says the material solution analysis phase ends when the AOA has been completed, analysis of the alternative, and the material solution options for the capability need identified in the approved ICD have been recommended by the lead DoD component conducting the AOA, and the phase-specific entrance criteria for the initial review milestone have been satisfied. So that's there, that sounds important. So when does material solution analysis ends? It ends when the analysis of the alternative is completed. We've gone through all the alternatives. We know exactly what we want, what it needs to do, how it needs to be done. And so once a decision is made and the material solution options for the capability need that was identified in the initial capabilities document, then we have completed the material solution analysis. And then that often, let's see. And if you look at the diagram, let's go to page 4222. 4222. All right, the diagram at the top. You have user needs, technology opportunities, and resources. Then under that, to the far left, you see the material solution analysis that we just talked about. So you have to be able to picture the diagram, have the different phases, and determine what's going on in that phase. So at the end of the material solution analysis, so if you look prior to the material solution analysis beginning, you have a decision point. That's what that diamond-shaped thing to the left at the bottom there means. Decision point. So material development decision before they start the process, as I mentioned, and then you do the material solution analysis. Once the material solution analysis is completed, and you know when it is completed, after the end of the analysis of the alternative has been completed and approved, then that begins milestone A. So you see the A in the triangle after material solution analysis. And then the next phase is the technology development phase. So the TD, which is where we're going to pick up on page 4222. So the purpose of technology development, TD, is to reduce technology risk, determine and mature the appropriate set of technology. So everything associated with the development of that technology and reducing the risk associated with it. So you can see that on page 22. On the top of page 23 at milestone A, let's see what it says there. The MDA reviews the proposed material solution and the draft technology development strategy. So in the milestone A, what it's saying is, again, before you move to the next step, you also have to have a review. So you make a decision on the stage you're in, and then you review the next stage to see what you want to do. So the MDA, Milestone Decision Authority, reviews the proposed material solution and the draft technology development strategy. The technology development phase begins when the MDA has approved a material solution and the technology development strategy. And he has documented it in the Acquisition Decision Memorandum, the ADM. So I'm going to write ADM off to the side so I don't forget. So before the material solution analysis, we have material development decision is made to go to material solution analysis. In that, we establish alternatives. We do an analysis of the alternative. So at the end, we want to get approval for the analysis of the alternative, and then we need guidance for the next phase, which is the technology development strategy. Once a decision is made on both, the TDS is documented in the Acquisition Decision Memorandum on the top of page 23. All right. Moving over to page 4224, since I got a check mark here, at Milestone A, the DoD component shall submit a cost estimate for the proposed solution identified by the AOA. If requested by the MDA, the Cost Analysis Improvement Group shall develop an independent cost estimate. So once a decision is made on which course of action they're going to go with, then you have to have the associated cost with that. Final request for proposals for the technology development phase shall not be released, nor shall any action be taken that will commit. Okay. All right. So I don't have nothing there. A lot of regulation information that you must read through. And then I'm going to move it over to the systems life cycle process continuation. The next, so let's go to page 27. So they're moving on to the EMD phase. But what I want to look to the diagram again, you see the material solution analysis phase. And we say at the end of that, you do analysis of the alternative, you get approval for the AOA, and you also get guidance for moving into the technology development. The purpose of the technology development is to reduce technology risk and interoperability. All your technical things are developed and analyzed in technology development. Those are all between the material solution analysis and the technology development are your pre-systems acquisition processes. If it goes on to milestone B, so that means at the end of the technology development phase, another decision point is made. And then initiation to go to milestone B, the milestone decision authority must make decision to go to milestone B. If they do reach milestone B is your program initiation. All right, so let's see now. Page 28, purpose of the engineering and manufacturing development phase, EMD, is to develop a system or an increment of a capability to complete the full system integration. That's where now we're getting ready to actually develop the item that we wanted to fill that capability gap. The second to last paragraph, EMD begins at milestone B, which is normally the initiation of an acquisition program. So again, I reiterate, a full-fledged defense acquisition program is not initiated initially. Just because it's a material solution doesn't mean you go through the whole acquisition process. You have to do analytical type testing of different processes to determine, is it really a material solution that we need? So that's what it's saying. Material solution analysis, AOA, milestone A, and technology development are the three areas where they determine if we need to go into full-fledged acquisition program initiation, which is done in milestone B, in the engineering and manufacturing development. All right, let's see. Each increment of an evolutionary acquisition shall have its own milestone B unless the milestone decision authority determines that the increment will be initiated at milestone C. Here we go. At milestone B, the milestone decision authority shall approve the acquisition strategy, because once you get and you said program initiation, now we need an acquisition strategy. Remember earlier I said that the SEP, the systems engineering plan, is also done in milestone B to meet the acquisition strategy. So you need an acquisition strategy and the acquisition program baseline. That program manager now needs to say, okay, what's our starting point for this program? Cost, performance, schedule. What type of things are we looking at? So the APB, acquisition program baseline. Page 29, the EMD has two major efforts: integrated system design and systems capability and manufacturing process demonstration. Additionally, the MDA conducts post-PDR assessments when consistent with the acquisition strategy. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. All right, so I got a lot. I don't have much underlined here, nope. All right, let's move to page 4234. Let me see. So I think, okay, I'm gonna go all the way up to the summary on page 40. Yeah. All right, so next is the production. So under milestone B, then you have engineering and manufacturing development. Then under that, you have production and development, production and deployment phase. So the purpose of the PD phase is to achieve operational capability. So we engineering the product, and then the next phase is now we actually have an operational product. So that's what it's saying there. The MDA makes a decision to commit the Department of Defense to production at Milestone C, and decision is documented in an acquisition decision memorandum. So you see the pattern. Throughout the whole process, the ADM is being updated. Milestone C authorizes entry into LRIP. When you study Milestone B, it is say that in Milestone B, they identify the low rate initial production numbers. What is the smallest amount that we're going to develop initially? So it's saying now that in Milestone C is when they actually develop the number that we establish in B. Okay. Page 35, 4 to 35, the low rate initial production. And it's probably going to repeat what I just said. This effort is intended to result in completion of manufacturing development in order to ensure adequate and efficient manufacturing capability and to produce the minimum quantity necessary to provide production or production representative articles, establish an initial production base for the system, and permits an orderly increase. All right, so the smallest amount we want to create, and then we can gradually increase the amount if the system is doing what we wanted or expected it to do. Page 36, full rate production. So it's doing what we wanted to do in the production and deployment phase with the low rate. So now we need to go to full rate production and deployment. Again, we just keep it in the back of your mind that before we move to this phase, the Milestone Decision Authority have analyzed all the data from that current phase and determined if they want to move forward. So full rate production criteria may not proceed beyond the LRIP, the low rate initial production, without the Milestone Decision Authority approval. So that's what I just stated. Can't move forward without the MDA's approval. The top of page 37, second paragraph, the last couple of sentences. During this effort, units will typically attain initial operational capability. As technology, software, and threats change, follow-on operational tests and evaluation shall be considered to assess current. Because remember, all these development things that we're doing take time. And in the meantime, technology is changing, or threat is changing. Because from the time we identify that capability gap and the time that it actually get the item, we might not even need that item. So that's the purpose of all the decision points and the milestones, decisions that are made to determine if we need to move forward. The military equipment evaluation, paragraph 3 on page 4237. For milestone C, the PM prepares a program description as part of the acquisition strategy. Throughout the program and deployment, the PM or the lifecycle manager shall ensure that all deliverable equipment requiring capitalization is serially identified and valued at full cost. So we need total cost. And we also need to know the total cost throughout the life cycle or transfer from one DoD component to another. DoD component are updated quarterly throughout the life cycle of that item. So that's the paragraph 3 on page 37. Then the last phase of the acquisition system is the operations and support phase. So it seems like the first question you need to ask when you get to a phase is, what's the purpose of that phase? The purpose of the operation and support phase is to execute a support system. Now we build the items, we've got to maintain them. We've got to sustain them. How are we going to do that? So that's what you're doing in that whole life cycle support plan. It has to include from cradle to grave, from the time we start developing it to the point where it's no longer useful and the way how we get rid of it. So that's what this is covered under the support, operations and support phase. It goes all the way to disposal. Okay, highlights. Yes, page 39 at the bottom, disposal. At the end of its useful life, a system shall be demilitarized and disposed of in accordance with the legal and regulatory requirements. Whatever the policy says, to get rid of legal and the regulatory policies associated. Title 42 U.S. Code covers disposal of the item. So within that life cycle sustainment and disposal plan, or the life cycle support plan, it'll talk about how you take care of it and then how you dispose of the item. All right, let's see what else I have on this page before we finish. Okay, so that concludes this portion of CDFM Module 4, Competency 2. So I began on page 4216 and ended on page 4240. So be sure to subscribe and share this YouTube page with all your financial managers who are also studying to take the CDFM exam. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you guys again next time.